All right, we'll call People v. DeStasio.
Afternoon again, Your Honor. Lee Revokes on behalf of Thomas DeStasio.
All right, good afternoon. This is file 24-6882FH. And who's for the people on this case?
Anthony Julian on behalf of people.
All right, we're here for sentencing on a charge of operating while intoxicated, third offense, habitual fourth, with a statutory maximum of life in prison. The advisory guidelines are initially scored at 14 to 58 months. I have had an opportunity to review the defendant's pre-sentencing memorandum, as well as several letters in support of Mr. DeStasio. And Mr. Kukeski, have you had a chance to review the pre-sentence report and recommendations with Mr. DeStasio?
Your Honor, I have had a chance to review that report, yes.
All right, and
Did have some corrections, Your Honor, to be made to that report.
all right, so let's look at your requested corrections to the report. Yes, on page 4 of your written memo. You want to start there with the first requested.
Certainly, Your Honor. And then on page 4 of that, we had a discrepancy with the pre-sentence report on page 15.
With some addresses as to where his son and ex-wife is living.
That would be correct, Your Honor. Sonny's not sure where he's currently residing, but not at that address on Mackinac Avenue. And also, the wife lives on Vale Street, or his ex-wife does not keep the street number.
Okay, Agent Young, were those addresses based on the defendant's report? I guess, would that be on the family portion of the report, Mr. Kukeski? Can you direct me to where?
It would be actually under the marriage portion of the report, Your Honor. Page 14 to the bottom.
Okay, and you're saying the addresses for Lee and Tara is are not as they are listed on page 14?
Yes, Your Honor.
Agent Young, were those addresses populated from a prior report, or were they based on the defendant's self-report? Or
They would have been populated from a previous report. Along the offense, which is on parole.
okay.
And
If Mr. Kukeski were to give you address information for those two individuals, could you make a change in that block on those reported addresses?
yes,
Okay, if you can do that rather than us mentioning people's addresses on the live stream.
Very good, Your Honor. I can do that.
All right, so we'll make that change. Those look like those were the only changes, and then you had a scoring challenge, is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, so you have a challenge for OB-19. Go ahead.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
So, Your Honor, OB-19, our Department of Corrections scored 10 points. I had objected to the scoring of OB-19 at all, which deals with threat to a security of penal institution. And just assuming that the MDOC scoring was based on my client's refusal to submit to a PBT or chemical test or FSTs. And I outlined a case, an unpublished case, added that to my sentence memorandum first review. I did speak to the prosecuting attorney. He's in agreement with the change to that scoring.
Okay, well, it depends on the basis for Agent Young. Was that scored based on the chemical test refusal, or on the not initially stopping, or what?
I don't know. My basis for scoring it was on his refusals to PBT to bucket blood, and it was pointed out to me about prosecution after the fact. So
Okay, yeah, there was a very recent case about that. The DeWeird case, yeah. That I remember coming across that. So, Mr. Juliet, you concur with the defense analysis on that?
I do.
Okay, so then OB-19 would be scored at 0 points, which would be the OB level of 15, which would put us at what, level 2?
That is correct, Your Honor.
With the guidelines range then of 12 to 48.
That is correct.
Okay. Any other scoring challenges from the defense?
No other challenges, Your Honor.
Mr. Juliet, any additions, corrections, or scoring challenges from the people?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Kukowski, go ahead with your allocution.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I just would like to point out to the court the number of letters and support that Mr. DeStagio has here today. Some members in the gallery that are here in support of him. And obviously, Your Honor's been able to review the PSI in this matter. Mr. DeStagio does have a rather significant criminal history. And one of the things that alarmed me was the lack of rehabilitation that he's been given or offered. It was been outlined in a report. I think there was some comment that maybe back in the 90s he did some counseling, but he's never really fully been offered those services or engaged in such services. And we're requesting for Your Honor to sentence. We do have an agreement for sentencing in the guideline range. We're asking for a sentence to lower to mid-range of the guidelines and with a focus on rehabilitation upon his release. He did reach out to KPEP and has engaged in those services, or at least reached out to whether he's able to engage in those, which they've confirmed that with myself and with him as well. I think he's really invested in it at this time. I'm not sure if he has ever in the past invested in some sort of treatment and correction of that behavior, but he's obviously getting tired of this old act, and he's been very active in the AA community since he's been here in Sheboygan. He had a relapse, which was before the court here today. But in my speaking to him, he's really wants to change this pattern of behavior around, and he really wants to turn his life around, more or less, to say he knows he's going to get some incarceration on this. But we're asking for Your Honor to afford him some leniency with I guess, more of a sentence that gears towards rehabilitation when he's done. He has also been sitting for the parole hold since June of this year when the offense took place. He's not getting any credit for that time served. We asked the court to also consider that when the court does impose its sentence on Mr. DeStagio. And he did write something that he would like to say to Your Honor as well. And so I will give him the opportunity to speak to the court.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kukowski. Mr. DeStagio.
Yes, Your Honor. Just a moment. I've made a lot of bad decisions that has brought me to this point. I never had anybody that cared or supported me before until recently. I've been working diligently to change my life and character flaws to try and live a sober life and a productive member of society. I've been working with AA and my sponsor for the 12 steps, and am committed to changing my life. I only wish I have made these decisions sooner. Everybody in sobriety has told me that change will happen when it's supposed to, and I'm ready and been through enough. I've reached that point. No matter what happens today, I'm committed to being sober and living a sober life. I take full responsibility for my actions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Juliet, people's recommendations.
Thank you. Your Honor, we are here on the defendant's 7th OWI conviction. It looks like his criminal history started back in 1990 with his first DUI. So he's got 6 prior felony convictions, 26 misdemeanor convictions, 11 jail terms, 12 probation terms, 4 of which were terminated unsuccessfully, and he has been to jail 11 times. On the night in question, the defendant was operating a moped in the city of Sheboygan with approximately a 0.18 BAC. This court sentenced the defendant to 30 months incarceration just a few years ago. He was on parole at the time of this offense. I guess I find it hard to wrap my head around a low end of the guideline sentence when this court sentenced the defendant to prison a very short time ago. And while he's on supervision with the Department of Corrections, he does it again for the second time. So I think a sentence at the top end of the guidelines is appropriate.
Thank you. Mr. DeStasio, I'm glad that you have found some support in your efforts towards sobriety. And I've reviewed several letters and I see several faces in the courtroom, many of whom I know from their involvement in the sobriety community, and they help a lot of people. And I'm glad that they're there offering you that support in the community and by their presence here today. And, I am generally very open-minded to treatment options for folks, and we maintain a recovery program for that. And we try to give people as many chances as justice will allow. But sometimes, as much as we might want to give somebody yet another chance, justice doesn't allow it this time. A short time ago, I sent you to prison for a minimum of 30 months for your 6th drunk driving offense. While you're on parole for that offense, you get another 7th drunk driving conviction at more than twice the legal limit, crossing the center line at 8 p.m. in the summertime in the city of Sheboygan on a motor. You could have hurt yourself or somebody else. Unless you're the unluckiest gentleman in the universe to have been arrested all 7 times you've driven drunk, you and I both know how much a feature of your life that's been, and how many selfish decisions you have made, placing people at risk of harm. When somebody's on parole for felony drunk driving and they commit another felony drunk driving, there are some things that justice demands, that protection of the community demands. If you didn't have a sentence agreement for a sentence within the guidelines, I would go above those guidelines and keep you away from our streets for as long as I could, Mr. DeStasio, while still hoping that you maintain sobriety and recovery on the inside. I am bound by the sentence agreement. I agree with the prosecutor that upper end is certainly called for. So it'll be the judgment of this court that you be committed to the Michigan Department of Corrections for not less than 48 months, no more than 25 years, exercising my discretion to set the maximum on the habitual 40. You get credit for 0 days, sir. It is mandatory consecutive to your parole violation. There's a fine of $500, crime victims assessment of $130, $300 in an OUIL reimbursement, $68 in state costs, and I'll also assess $350 in court costs. Mr. DeStasio, you may file an application for leave to appeal if you wish to challenge your conviction or my sentence or both. If you wanted a lawyer and qualified, I would grant you one, but you'd have to make that request within 6 months of the date. We're going to hand you some appeal paperwork and ask you to initial 1 copy so we have a record we gave it to you. The other one is for you to fill out if you wish to appeal, sir. Good luck to you. You will continue to have decisions to make today, tomorrow, and every day you're on the inside. And I hope that you make good ones to continue in your efforts at recovery. Good luck.